Testing. No, it's too big. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but we've upgraded the hitch on the back of the Mini Merlot, because when we tried, it's the one off the combine, and when we tried to make the hitch for moving the chipper, the jaw inside wasn't quite wide enough, whereas the one on this was, because it's one with a pin, not an automatic pin. So we swapped them round, so now that's got that on. It's actually heavier than the one that was on it, so it'll make it perform better. Paul's expecting some bad weather. He's got his yellow submarine out. He's going to paint it blue. Paul, as an office officer, he does pest control, and he sorts out all the grain stores and the fumigation and stuff, so you might have seen him in the videos before. He's having a midlife crisis, so he's bought a yellow boat, but he's going to paint it blue. But I said, won't you lose it in the sea, because it'll be like blue, but apparently he won't. So I think he just wants to be Kid Rock. Yesterday Adam was making this. It's for moving the chip around. Anyway, we took the hitch off the combine and the jaws weren't wide enough, so we swapped it now with the one off the Mini Merlot. So you've just seen that there, so that's the new one now. It seems to work okay. It should stop us bending things on the headstock, or pulling it with a chain or a strap, or needing to track the digger up and down the yard. Because every time we track the digger up and down the yard, it takes a layer of concrete off, or a layer of road planings, and makes a mess. So that can do that. It's just a shame. Well, we can, to be fair, we could move trailers with it as well, but you've obviously got to get out and put the pin in. Whereas the one off the combine was an automatic pin, so you just drove in and it clicked on, and then off you went. And then when you got to where you were going, you got out, pulled the clip, and backed out. Anyway, now you've just got to use that, but it should do the job. Someone was asking about the dryer setup. So we've got a few different dryer setups. We've obviously got 3 drying floors that we put stuff on, and then we've got what was basically the Mecmar grain dryer in the back that was powered off kerosene. We've now converted that to run off hot water, which sounds ludicrous, putting hot water through a kerosene boiler, but we actually don't. We've just unplugged the boiler, put a heat exchanger on the front of it, and built a cowl out of timber to suck, so it sucks hot air into itself without the burner. And then we turn the hot water off, and then it just sucks cool air. So we basically, under these plywood, we've got a trench conveyor, and then we've got a bay here that we can fit, I don't know, about 120 tonne in. So when we're combining, we can just tip straight into here. And the good advantage of this conveyor system is it empties from the front of the shed. So every time the dryer takes a batch in automatically while we're out combining, when we come back, there's another gap to put it in. Or sometimes what we'll do is we'll fill the drying floors over there with the combine, so the sprayer's parked, and then dry it over there. Then in the morning we'll move it into here and leave this dryer on a cooling cycle all day, just cooling, conditioning and cleaning it and putting it into the shed. The other day we were cleaning a bit of oilseed rape, so we'll go around the other side and have a look, but it'll be a bit dusty and a bit dirty because it needs a good clean up now. It's a bit dusty, but that's a cyclone, and this is the rubbish that it's sucked out of it. So it puts into this concrete bunker here, and then we have a little bucket for the Merlot that just fits in, and that scoops that out, and then that goes into the boiler as fuel. There's a cyclone. You follow the tube all the way up to the top. It goes onto basically what's a hoover at the top of the dryer, and as the grain's recirculating round, that's sucking all the smaller particles, bits of straw or bits of cracked oilseed rape, things like that, and dropping them into here. So the trench conveyor where I've just been stood is the other side of this wall. It comes along, comes up into here, and then drops down this spout, into the spout, and then into the dryer. So it then goes along there, into that auger at the bottom of the dryer, and then into this. This is what's known as a batch dryer. So it's made by Mecmar. This lives inside, but when we were buying them, we looked at the Mecmar because we liked the fact that a lot of it was galvanised and stainless steel at the bottom, so there was nothing to rust. Because grain dryers, when normally they'd be working outside, they get water and the moisture, the grain would then start getting wet, create like an acid, and they just rot away, and you end up with no bottom in the dryer. It's full electric, so it turns itself on and off and different things. And it's an 18 tonner. We wanted a 20 tonner, but we couldn't quite fit it in the gap we wanted because of the head height. But it doesn't really matter because it runs automatically. It's got a slightly faster batch time than a 20 ton one would have. That's where it originally discharged. You basically have an electronic actuator on the side here, opens and closes the hatch and discharges through that wall into what we call store 3, which is the oilseed rape store. And then up there we have a top discharge auger, and we've got 2 spouts on it. One discharges into what we call store 2, which is the wheat shed, and then the other one discharges into a bay next to the intake bay, and that's where we can shovel it up and move it to different sheds if we need to, or back a trailer underneath and drop it into a trailer. This is the control panel, a bit dusty, just loads of switches and different things, different programs, whether you leave it on automatic or you say, right, I want 3 batches, it'll dry 3 batches and then turn itself off, or you can just leave it on continuous. As long as you keep it fed and keep the grain moved from wherever it's discharging, it'll just run all night. This is the heat exchanger now on the front of it. So the dryer sort of ends here. There's a fan that sucks in like a normal dryer. Well, we've made this, friend John made all this because he's good with woodwork. We basically suck clean air out the shed in there through this heat exchanger. That warms it up, goes into the dryer. So the dryer thinks the burner's working, but really it's not. It's this. And then when it's on a cooling cycle, then we shut these valves. Now we are going to put motorized valves on this, so it just, as it turns the burner off, it shuts the valves, but we've never got round to doing it, mainly because we don't often use it for drying grain anymore. We only really use it for cooling, but we have got the option to do that. But if we're flat out busy anyway, we're normally not too far from it in the yard, so we just open and close these valves. But it is something that we want to try and get done for this harvest, have them activated through electric so we can just leave it. So that's the heat exchanger, bolted to the floor. It's exactly the same as the one on the other fan round by the big boiler. So it's sort of 2 meters by about 1.5 high. It's a 1 kilowatt heat exchanger. The reason we're sucking the cool air from the shed next door is, as you can see in here, it gets very dusty, lots of dust everywhere. That would just get blocked in seconds, because even in here, even with the hoover on the top, there's a lot of dust floating around by the dryer. Just look at the floor, and you just end up with a blocked radiator every 2 minutes. So by taking the air out the top of the other shed, it's nice clean air. I'll go round and show you anyway. Before we go in the shed, I've just come around this other side so you can see a little bit easier. This is the front of the drain dryer, that's the fan in there, and in there would be the burner. And then we have a little service hatch here. I'll go inside and I'll show you the heat exchanger, and you can see the where the burner is. So that's the heat exchanger in there. It does need a clean, it's got some fine dust stuck to it. And then there's the old burner up there that's doing nothing, and there's the fan where it sucks in. And we've taken the drawbar off the front to build around it. So this is the other bunker that we can drop grain into at the moment. It's got a pressure washer in it and a bag of fertiliser. But you can drop out of that spout into here. You can put 2 or 3 batches in here if you want to keep something separate. So if we're drying wheat, we'll throw it in that shed. If we then put a bit of spring barley through, we'll throw it in here, move it round to the shed. But yeah, that dryer, where it's situated, it can discharge into 3 different places. So we've got 2 pieces of string up there, I don't know if you can see them. We've got a blue one, and it was a pink one, but now it's faded to white. If we want it going in that shed, we pull the blue string. If we want it going in this shed, we pull the white string. And we've colour coded, you can't see on the camera because they're a bit dusty, but we've colour coded the 2 different spouts as to what colour we want for which shed. Or we turn that auger off, which discharges out the top, and we use the side chute into the oilseed rape store. This is where it discharges the oilseed rapes. There's a bit of a small pile here which I discharged yesterday. And then that wooden box on the wall, that is basically where it sucks its clean air through from the top of this shed, so that there's no dust within it, and that keeps that heat exchanger nice and clean, because the dryer the other side obviously has a lot of dust. These big silver pipes you see running through the shed and going out the back there, that's where the biomass boiler is behind there. I don't know if you can see, but see the back of the shed, there are lighter colour sheets to them ones. That's because when we had a fire in the boiler, it damaged this side of the shed, melted the paint off it, so we had to reclad the back half of this shed. So that's the reason why there's a slight different colour match, and it damaged some of the roofing sheets as well, so we had to replace the first row of roofing sheets. That was about 4 years ago now. Anyway, this shed would normally have wheat in, but it's got oilseed rape at the moment. This will all be gone soon, as well as that last little pile of wheat that's left in this corner here. We put this system in, I think it was in 2012, was a wet harvest, so we built it over the winter of 12 to sort of ready for harvest 13. So I think I put a video on about 7 years ago. I'll try and put the link in the below, and then you'll see it working when it's all new and shiny, if you're interested anyway. If you've got any questions about it, just ask. A few people have been to look at the sit-up, and they've kind of like not really replicated it, but used different ideas to make it work on their farm. What I wanted was not to have to handle grain too much, so the idea is the trailers dump it straight out the back door, and the dryer grabs it itself and feeds it, and then empties itself, and then we can leave it running overnight then, and it'll just discharge and look after itself. We don't have to be there moving trailers or different things. I didn't want expensive elevators in the shed roof, because I'd sooner spend the money on expensive tractors instead. Eventually, maybe I will one day start to put some elevators in to bucket the grain in different places, but them elevators aren't going to make me farm more efficiently. It's just saves a bit of time in the yard. So I saw that the money was better spent elsewhere. In the field of beans now, they're getting a lot bigger again now. I've just gone to see if I can see any flowers, but they're not quite, but they are just starting to form. Don't know whether you can see properly, but hopefully by next week we'll definitely see some petals on the lower leaves, and they'll still keep growing up higher, and they should start flowering just in time for when the oilseed rape stops flowering, so the bees will move off the oilseed rape then into the beans. We've got quite a big acreage of beans again this year, as well as oilseed rape, so that's good. So we should have plenty of honey as well, which I've got a plan for. Finally got the right tyres now off Amazon. Dad's gone and picked them up today. He's also been to Warburton's, which is, you know, you can see the field of oilseed rape the other side of the river the other day. Well, they also grow potatoes as well, so we've got some of the first new potatoes of this year. Mine aren't ready yet. They don't look like Ulster Prince, which taste the best, but they're good enough because they're new potatoes. Not sure if you've seen the news or you've seen Twitter, but there's obviously been a trade deal signed with Australia. So there's a lot of people getting really excited, thinking that we're going to be basically put out of business by the Australians sending us cheap food. Now, if you were Australia and you were trying to produce food and you've got to ship it 10,000 miles to us, would it be cheap by the time it got here? And why would you sell it cheap? Surely you'd sell it for as much as you could. So I can't see what the problem is. But also, if you're a whiskey producer or you're growing malt and barley, surely there's an opportunity now to start selling the Aussies beer and different things like that. So I don't know what all the fuss is about, really. I think trade can go both ways, and we have rain. I mean, I know we do get some dry weather, but Australia spends most of its time in drought, so I don't see how they can possibly produce things cheaper than us and put us out of business, if I'm perfectly honest. I think there'll be opportunities come out of the trade deal, and if everyone gets excited and goes, but what about if they then sign on with America? Well, it's the same thing. It's the other side of the Atlantic. You know, as long as we do our job and we do it efficiently, I can't see a problem. Admittedly, they can use tools that we can't use, but that is what we should lobby for, to use them tools, not to stop trade deals. No doubt lots of people will probably disagree with that, but as far as I'm concerned, change brings opportunity. So if you want to comment below whether you disagree or you agree, just let me know anyway. While I'm stood by the combine, there's a quiz question for you. So can you see it says on it APS Synflow hybrid? Someone said, what does the hybrid mean? Is it electric? No, it's not, but do you know what it means? If you do, leave a comment below. This was yesterday's quiz question. I actually kept my hand over it so you couldn't see. It is for the manual, so you've basically a manual in there that tells you to make sure that all the springs are tight, all the wheel nuts are tight, and that you don't tip it into power cables. That's about it, really. Quick update on the brickwork. It's going well. It's got to go a bit higher though, got to go a bit longer. Just had a message on Instagram. Don't forget I'm agri-contract on Instagram and Twitter. From Crawford Farms. Basically, he suffers from bad back, lower back pain when he's driving a tractor and different things. He's wondering how other farmers that might have it cope with it and what they do to manage. So if you've got any ideas for him, leave a comment below. So if you want to watch another video, click up here. If you want to watch subscribe, click here. Let's see if we can get to 14,000 subscribers. We're nearly there. I don't know whether we'll do it by the end of the month. I mean, have a guess what day you think we'll hit 14,000, but we're at the high 13s at the moment. So I'll see you tomorrow.